Hello and welcome to another session of Web Development with CodingZen. My name is Srishti and today we are going to be dealing with CSS animations. Precisely speaking, we are going to be making a button with some CSS animations happening around it. So let's begin. It's a very simple hover CSS animation on a button. I know it's a bit confusing. So it just means that when I hover on this button, all of these lines just shrink away like that. Right? It's a very simple animation, yet it looks cool. So let's begin with it. Also, if you want to follow along with this tutorial, I would really recommend that you have prior knowledge of CSS. So, basic knowledge of CSS and basic knowledge of animations, like you should know how animations work, right? So, yeah, let's begin with it. So I'm going to go to my VS Code and yep, I already have this file made up for you guys. It's called button_2.html. Let's start with the code in it. So I'm going to be starting with my HTML first, and then I'm going to be coding my CSS. So obviously, when we work with HTML, we want that basic structure of HTML, that is the head and the body and everything. So I have the template over here. I'm just going to say exclamation mark in my VS Code and press enter. There you go. I have the template. So next, in the title, I can say a hover animation. And in my body, obviously, I'm going to have a button, right? So button, and it is going to have the text of hover, as you can see over here. So I don't think you can see. Okay, wait. As you can see over here, it has the text of hover, right? So let me put that over here. So hover, done. Save it. Let's see how it looks. So open it with live server, and I have the button over there, top right corner, top left corner. Okay, great. I need these lines as well. Now there are various ways of doing these lines. You can put HRs and different ways. I'm gonna be making divs. I'm gonna be putting divs, and to be precise, I'm gonna be putting 8 divs in it, right? So why 8? Because it has 8 lines, right? So 4 for this box and 4 for that box, right? So let's go to our code and let's make 8 divs, and I'm gonna put unique classes in it. So .1, and then another one with .2, another one with .3, another one with .4, and so on all the way till 8. Yeah, so I have all of my 8 divs. Let's save it and let's see the outputs. So yeah, the output over here, I do have the button, but I don't have the lines. I just made the 8 divs for the lines, but I don't see it. And if you have basic knowledge of CSS, you would know why I don't see the lines, because I need to put some CSS into these divs to make them look like lines. Okay, so I need to do that. That's CSS part, right? So that means I am done with my HTML, right? I have the button and I have the 8 divs, and that's it for HTML. All right, let's go towards the CSS now. So over here, I'm going to put an internal style sheet. You can definitely go ahead and put an external one. So I'm going to be starting off with putting my button at the center of the page, right? So this button over here is at the top left corner. I want it at the center. So I'm going to be doing that using Flexbox. So I'm going to say body. And over here, I can say display as flex. And then I can say align items as center and justify content as center. And let's save it. And hopefully my button should be at the center of the page, right? And I see it's not, right? So if you know about Flexbox, you would know why this is not at the center of the page. But a quick fix to this problem is that I need to give it some height. So I'm going to say 100 VH. Let's save it. And now our problem should be solved. As you can see over here, my button is at the center of the page, right? So if you have done till this much, great, good, very good. Next on, we are going to be doing some styling to our buttons and the divs and everything. So first off, I'm going to be starting with my button. And how about I put both of my screens side by side like that? So we can see what's happening on the output like that, straight away like that. Okay, so I want to make this button look like this. right? So I need to do the borders and the size and whatnot, right? So over here, I'm going to select button and button. And how about I give it some height first? So 10%. How about I give it some width? So 20%, double of it, right? Let's save it. And this size looks fine to me. Since that's the only button that's going to be there on the screen, this size looks perfect to me. It's big enough. I'm going to put font size because the size over here, like the hover, is really small. So font size and maybe 2 REM. REM is a relative unit. You should know about that. And let's put a border. As you can see over here, it has a border and that too in pink color, right? So I'm going to say border. And how about 2 pixels? And how about solid? 2 pixels. Solid. And then maybe this color. Better, right? Next, I'm going to be putting some background color to both as in the body as well as the background of my button, right? So it's a very light shade of pink, as you can see over here. So I have the hex code over here. So I'm going to copy this. So copy and let me put that over here, right? So it's just, very light shade of pink. That's it. So I'm going to say background color in my body first because I want to show you something. I pasted, I save it, and you see background color when I mention it in the body, it has it in the body, not in the button, right? So I need to mention background color over here as well, and I save it and better, right? One thing, this black color bothers me. I need to change this black to pink. So how about I mention color over here and I put it to hot pink. So as you can see in this document, the background colors are, a lighter version of pink, but the text, the lines and the borders and everything are, a darker version of pink, which is essentially hot pink over here. I'm going to save it and done, right? So done, right? Next part is styling these divs. So the thing is, I can't see the div right now. So how can I style it? So first off, I need to see the div to style it. So I'm going to say .1. And how about I actually give it some height? And that can be maybe 10% and a width of 20%. So same size as my button, right? And I need to give it some colors. So border. And then same thing from here. So I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to put this over here, save it. And I can now see my first div like that. Now the very first problem. I don't want this div to be sitting next to my hover button. I want it, overlapping it, right? So how do we do that? We are going to be using positions to do that. So I'm going to be using position and I'm going to be saying absolute. Let's save it and that's better. Second thing, this is supposed to be, bigger in size. So, the width of this box is supposed to be bigger, right? So instead of, okay, let's do the height first. So how about I increase the height of it and I say 13% and done. Better, right? So width is going to be same as the button, but the height I have increased, and I'm going to increase the width in the rest 4. So 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to increase width instead of height in these 4, right? So yeah. So with this, I'm done with .1. I'm going to do the same thing for .2, .3, and .4. So copy it and .2 and apply the same CSS and so on. But one thing that bothers me over here is that this border, I mean, it's a full box. I don't want that. I just want a straight, line on the top, right? So instead of saying border over here, how about I say border top? And then in the next one, I say border bottom. Let's save it and I will have, only the top and the bottom lines, right? I can do the same thing for 3 and 4. So when I say .3, I paste the CSS, but instead of border, I say border left and let's save it. And I have the, left line and I say 4 .4, I put the same CSS, but over here, instead of border, I'm going to say border right, like that. Let me save it, and I have all the 4 lines like that. Same thing I'm going to do with my .5, .6, .7, and .8. But one thing before I go forward is this little gap bothers me. And that's because of border, content box over here. I'm going to select everything with the star, and I'm going to say box sizing, and I'm going to put it to border box. And when I save it, the space should be gone, and there you go, done. I'm going to say .5. Now what this is supposed to have, let me copy this again. Now .5, it is supposed to have border on the top, but the thing is, it is not supposed to have a height of 13%, but 10. But this width, we can increase this width, right? And we can put this width to maybe 23, right? Because we did 10 and then 3, so maybe 23, that would work. And yeah, that works, right? I have a line, and it's exceeding the width of my button, and that's what I wanted. I'm going to copy this CSS, so copy it. I'm going to say .6, and I'm going to paste this entire thing again. And I don't want border top over here, I want border bottom, and then save it. I have the other line, and same thing I'm going to do with .7 and .8. So over here, instead of border top, I'm going to say border left. And over here, instead of border top, I'm going to say border right. Save it. And with this, I am done with my styling part, right? So I have all the lines and everything is fine, right? Now I can actually begin with my animation, right? So the keyframes. So the keyframes are really simple. I just want these lines to shrink away, right? But I want these lines to shrink away, of course, but these lines which are horizontal are gonna shrink, like their width are gonna shrink, and the lines which are vertical, their height is gonna shrink, right? If that makes sense. So over here, I'm gonna mention keyframes, and @keyframes, @keyframes, and the identifier can be shrink, but since I'm shrinking the width, so can be shrink W. And over here, I'm going to say 100%. So when the 100% of this animation is done, the width should be 0 pixels, right? And in the same manner, I'm going to mention one more keyframe like that. And this can be, shrink, but instead of W, I'm going to say H, shrink H, because I'm going to be shrinking height in it, and 100%. When that is, the animation is done 100%, so height should be 0 pixels, right? So this one is going to reduce the width, this one is going to reduce the height. Now I need to apply these animation to specific divs, right? So let's do that, and maybe I can do this. So over here, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say button, so button. And whenever you are hovering, on the button, this CSS should happen, and this CSS should happen to what? Should happen to .1, right? And what's the CSS? Animation name. So whenever you work with animation, you are supposed to mention the animation name and duration and iteration, etc. So I'm going to say animation name, and the animation name is going to be shrink W, because this is .1, and .1 is the horizontal line, right? And I want to shrink its width. This, if I save it, is not going to work. So if I hover, it's not going to work, because I do need to mention 2 more things over here. Animation duration, so that can be 2 seconds. And the next is going to be animation iteration count, animation, this one, and this can be infinite. So when I hover, it should happen and again and again until I dehover, right? So let me save it and let's try it out. So when I hover, it's not working. Okay, let's check for the errors. So the error can be maybe when I'm hovering on it, it's not actually getting hovered because it's behind the layers, behind the divs. Like the button is behind the divs, right? So what I can do is I can mention Z index. So I should do it, somewhere else. Maybe over here. So I can say button is supposed to have a Z index of 1, right? So it's on the top and over here. And now let's save it and now let's try it. So now when I hover on the button, the line is getting shrinked, right? So done. And that was the difficult part. Now the easy part, we're just going to copy paste entirely. We are going to copy paste everything, right? So over here, when I say button, when it's hovered, then apply this CSS to dot one. I'm going to do the same thing. So maybe I can just copy paste it from here, copy, and then 2. The same CSS should happen to 2 as well, right? And these are the 2 horizontal lines. And then we have this and this horizontal line as well. So maybe 5. And the other one's going to be 6, right? Let's save it and let's check it out. So when I hover, all of the horizontal lines are getting shrink like that. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to say, button. And when I hover on it, then dot 3 and then dot 4 and then dot 5 and 6 are already done because they were horizontal. So all of these are actually horizontal. So this dot 1, dot 2, dot 5 and dot 6 are horizontal lines. The other ones that I'm doing right now are the vertical lines, right? So over here I'm going to say 7 and the last one 8. Done, right? I'm going to copy this thing from here because why to write when we can copy and paste. And over here instead of W, it's going to be H because I want to shrink the height. I want to put that animation that's shrinking the height. Let me save it and let me hover on it right now. And with this, we are done with this CSS, simple CSS hover button. So when I hover on it, this CS is going to happen again and again and again until you dehover it like that, right? And if you don't want that, like if you want it should hover only once, so when I hover it should happen only once. So when I hover, this animation should happen just once, right? So over here, instead of saying infinite, you can say, okay, the iteration count should be only 1, like that, right? So now when I hover, it's just going to happen only once like that and not going to happen again, right? So I hope you enjoyed this session with me and have a nice day. Bye. See you next time.